everyone.
The ABC first met Harrison Wheatley a few months ago at the finish line of the City to South charity run in Brisbane.
You are a rock star, mate. Congratulations, Harrison.
How do you feel, Harry?
Good, thank you. Tired, exhausted, and everything.
The 12-year-old usually gets around in a wheelchair. He was born with a rare medical condition. His spinal cord is crushed and some parts are fractured or missing completely.
We call it the Wheatley syndrome because once Harrison was diagnosed, we were told that they had never seen anything like this before.
But Harrison doesn't let it define him.
There's so many people worse off than me in the world. So if I just keep going with life, then there's nothing that can stop me.
Do you ever wish that you didn't have to have your wheelchair or your leg braces on?
Yeah, I wish that heaps of times. All I want to do is just play soccer or go out with the other kids and play rugby and that.
I do certainly like the isolation and that wild aspect to living here. It's something that seems quite untamed. There's an element of drama to the weather here, which I think is something that fascinates me.
About 35 kilometres off the coast of Brisbane lies Moreton Island, the third biggest sand island in the world.
Photography allows me to breathe. It's something that brings me pure joy.
Roots run strong, deep out here in a hat town, and we'll carry on down through the years in a hat town.
It's been the symbol of the Australian bush and rural life for more than a century. For farmers and cattlemen, a dusty day's work wouldn't be the same without an akubra.
Rabbit fur is the best fur to make a hat out of, and we've used that the rabbit industry in the 40s and 50s was absolutely enormous. Wild rabbits, that is. There was no farmed rabbits in those days.
Stephen Keir owns and runs the Akubra factory in Kempsey, New South Wales. It's a 5-generation family business.
My great-grandfather married the boss's daughter, and generations later I'm here now.
So how many of these do you need for one Akubra hat?
About 12.
12 of these?
Yeah.
So 12 rabbits?
Yeah.
A local rabbit shortage has forced Akubra to do the once unthinkable and look beyond Australian shores for its fur. It's the final day of harvest at Ballindine Estate on the Granite Belt, and workers are up early picking the Cabernet Sauvignon. But it's a bittersweet moment. Bad weather over the past few months has pushed the season back later than usual, causing problems with the grapes.
Because of the rain that we've had constantly since Christmas time. And so the weather turned cold, the fruit just doesn't ripen properly. So it takes a lot longer to ripen. And, it's a late season. The fruit is starting to get very mouldy because of 3 days of rain. So the fruit was getting a lot of mould on it, and we had to harvest.
After the High Court ruling, you got some extraordinary abuse in social media. I mean, really repulsive stuff. People calling for you to be killed, to be deported, someone, I think, wishing that you got cancer. I mean, really nasty, nasty stuff. What's your response to those people?
Well, first of all, I can say that it's not just on social media. It's much closer than that. It's letters, emails, calls.
Is that still going on?
Still going on.
Every day?
Yes, every day. And there are several. There was an announcement this week on the police action. There are more being investigated by the police. But what I think is, I have to put it to one side because people are angry. And I don't actually blame them for being angry because we got here because of people's anger, because people are angry that they didn't they're not being considered. They're being left behind, that phrase the politicians use. So I'm not angry with them. What I am angry with, I'm angry with the politicians and certain media who are enabling people or think to them it's okay to behave like this. It isn't.
But there is more than one side. Peace has to be made between two peoples. And one side feels very aggrieved and angry tonight, and the other side feels very grateful. And that's not a very good it's not fertile terrain to try to move forward.
As a backdrop, Alyse, thanks once again. It's looking at the clock, only about half an hour since we heard from Donald Trump making that announcement. Such a stark move from traditional US foreign policy. Let's just play again for you, in case you missed it a little earlier, what the President has just announced at the White House.
In 1995, Congress adopted the Jerusalem Embassy Act, urging the federal government to relocate the American embassy to Jerusalem and to recognize that that city, and so importantly, is Israel's capital.
The Great Keppel Island cabins have been clinging to the dune face for months. He's still hoping to salvage them. A mammoth repair job is underway, and tourists are starting to trickle back. Even before the cyclone, the island was struggling to attract the tourists it once had. A $600 million resort development has been put on hold until it can get international investors. And meanwhile, the remaining accommodation providers are desperately trying to convey the message that the island is still open for business.
Why us, yeah, but it was only for a second. Yeah, he's a good little boy, and so is Max too, and the smile at the end of the day is worth everything. I hope they just have a really long and happy life. They fulfil their dreams, that's what I want.
Well, I get annoyed sometimes, and then the other times I just say, well, I'm just gonna have to get through it, and I do it. No pain, no gain. Yeah, that's my motto.